The 11 most important skills for entrepreneurs. As entrepreneurs and business owners, we need to be really versatile and we have to be able to wear a lot of hats in order to make our businesses work. And this is particularly true in the beginning when we're by ourselves or maybe we have a very small staff. We're responsible for doing a lot of things. There's no way we could independently hire for every function in our business. And so we're sort of forced into the crucible of figuring out exactly how to handle all these different business functions and at least become competent and aware of all the different things that need to be done. We'll eventually figure out that there are some skills and some things that we do that we're just not that great at and we'd be better off to outsource. But in the beginning, it's usually all on us to be able to do it. And we also need a really wide range of skills. So what skills are the most valuable? If we're thinking about entrepreneurship and we're thinking about we want to be able to become the best business owner, the most successful entrepreneur we possibly can within our capabilities, we can't possibly focus on every single skill that entrepreneurs need because it's just too vast an array of different things. Plus, just human nature, we can't be really good at everything. There are going to be certain things that we're naturally much better at than others. And so those are things that in general we want to lean into. But for entrepreneurship in and of itself, when we look at the most successful entrepreneurs and the ones who struggle, what are the skills that separate the two groups so we can really focus and hone in on those to make sure that we either A, develop our skills in those areas, or B, find someone who could join the team who can fill in that gap if we're just not that good at it. So what skills are the most valuable? What skills should we work on developing? Well, there are actually 11 different entrepreneurial skills that are attributed to the highest level of entrepreneurial success. And so based on research, the most important skills for entrepreneurs, and by the way, this obviously is not an exclusive list. There are tons of different skills, and in different situations, different things would be more valuable. But these 11 overall are the most important if we want to be successful as an entrepreneur. The first is financial skills. Entrepreneurs need to be able to understand budgeting, financial statement analysis, and resource allocation. It's just a fancy way of saying we need to be able to figure out how we can manage the money that we've got in order to be able to build our business. Very often, as entrepreneurs, particularly in the startup or the early phases, unless we've gotten outside funding, we don't usually have a lot of extra financial resources. So it's all that much more important that we're very good at being able to manage that, understanding that, figuring out the budgeting so we know how much to allocate for various different aspects of the business, and also so we can figure out how we can project forward what it looks like our sales and profits and revenue and expenses are going to be in the future based on the business operations that we're undertaking. And so we want to be able to figure out where to put the money and where to put those resources in order to manage our business effectively and to make sure that we stay financially solvent. Obviously, in order for the business to continue, we've got to have enough money to be able to operate, pay the expenses, and continue to do our marketing so we can sell products and services and stay in existence. So that's a really important skill, and it's not one necessarily that entrepreneurs need to master, but they need to be aware of it, they need to at least understand it, and then eventually can get someone who's an expert at that to come on the team as we start to grow. The second group of skills, or the second thing of skills, and by the way, these are not in rank order. I'm just listing them all out. There's not one that's necessarily higher than the other on this list just because the numbers are 1 or 2 or whatever. So the second one is communication and listening. The clear expression of ideas and actively listening are really, really important for building relationships, resolving conflicts, making informed decisions. And so communication skills, both in terms of our ability to get our vision across to our customers, our stakeholders, anybody else who's involved in our business, but also the ability to listen. We want to be able to listen to other people on the team. We want to be able to listen to our customers. Sometimes entrepreneurs get into sort of a mindset where we feel like we know best because we've got the vision, and that's really all there is to it. But it isn't quite that simple. It's actually really important that we keep an open mind and that we actively listen, as opposed to just letting people talk while we nod our head, knowing that we're just going to ignore what they're saying. It's really important on both ways to be able to communicate. It's going to make us more effective at just about every other element of the business. And so whether it's dealing with customers, whether it's hiring staff or managing them, whether it's working with stakeholders or trying to raise capital, all of these things are going to come down to our ability to communicate, present, listen, understand, and connect with other people. So that's a vitally important skill for every entrepreneur, and that one definitely should be near the top of the list. The third skill is critical and creative thinking. We don't often think of entrepreneurs as needing to be very creative unless we're in one of those artsy types of businesses, niches, or industries. But actually, that's not really the full scope of it, because with creative thinking, what we're really talking about is entrepreneurs constantly are in a situation where we have to solve problems. We're always needing to be able to look at a situation and say, okay, this didn't go the way we were planning, or this just came up that we weren't expecting. So we need to get creative in terms of our ability to navigate the various issues, the various problems, and to keep things moving forward and stay on track. And the critical thinking is similar in that we need to be able to evaluate things. We need to be able to look at things and say, if we analyze this information and we do it objectively, so we aren't emotional about it, that's going to help us solve problems. It's going to help us look at data and make informed decisions, so then we can generate maybe innovative ideas. I know sometimes for me, and some of the biggest challenging times I've had throughout the last 17 years in business, sometimes it felt like I was sort of trapped and there was really no way out. And the interesting thing is, as I started to just sort of ruminate on the problem and just let it marinate in my head, what would end up happening is I might wake up the next day or maybe a few days later or whatever, and an idea would hit me that I hadn't really thought of before. And that's because over time, the practice of going through that process of constantly troubleshooting things develops that as a skill in and of itself inside ourselves. So we are then able to be able to apply that to every new situation that comes up. And that's a really powerful skill to have. So we want to be able to do that for sure, because we're going to be able to navigate a lot of different things when we're entrepreneurs. The fourth one is strategic thinking and planning. So we are oftentimes, particularly in the beginning of the business, in go mode. We've got things that need to be done. We've got to execute. We've got to implement. We've got to be really focused on the operations of the business, because that's the only way things are going to get done. And so that's really where we're sort of focused. But in order to get any sort of long-term growth, in order to reach goals and achieve visions and things like that, we actually have to be able to pick our heads up and look down the horizon a little bit to see where we're headed. It's fine to be able to run real fast in the moment in order to make sales and get customers and do all these things in order to generate revenue and pay the bills. 100% needs to be done. But we also have to be able to think strategically, thinking down the road where it is we want to go. So as we hit each milestone or each goalpost, we can figure out, we can adjust, we can analyze and say, are we getting closer or further from where we want to go? Because ultimately, we don't just want to be treading water and surviving each day by getting stuff done. We want to be able to move forward. We want to be able to keep reaching toward whatever that vision is that we had set. And so that requires a little bit of strategic thinking and planning, and I might even throw the word long-term in there. Oftentimes we're sort of stuck in the now, and in the short term, we've got bills due at the end of the month, or we've got, customers, and we want to make sure our financial stuff looks good, or that kind of stuff. But we need to be able to think on the horizon of a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and think, where do we want this to go? Because if we have that, we can work our way backward and figure out exactly how we can get there step by step. That's a really important skill for entrepreneurs to develop, because it's something that oftentimes will get left behind in the throes of getting stuff done, but it's vitally important if we really want to be able to achieve anything. So we have to be able to adapt to challenges, make informed decisions, and that's all going to be really vital for business success. The fifth skill on the list is going to be leadership. Now, leadership actually has two different sides of that coin, or two different facets. One is actually self-leadership. So you might say, well, I don't really have a staff. I don't have a business. I'm like a solopreneur and I do this all myself. That's totally fine. But we are our own boss. And so would we hold ourselves accountable with personal leadership the way we would if we had somebody that we were paying by the hour or paying a salary to do what they're doing? Oftentimes entrepreneurs, because we dictate our own schedule and because those lines blur between our professional and personal lives, we don't always necessarily have the strictest controls over the time that we use and when we use it. So it's possible to go through entire days, even weeks, feeling very busy, and then looking back and thinking, well, what did I actually get done? And realize that we didn't really accomplish much. It isn't hard to stay busy. It's very hard to be super productive because we need to focus on the highest leverage activities. So personal leadership is the one side of it. We need to have good control and discipline over ourselves so we are the greatest, representation and example for ourselves that we can be in terms of making sure we're getting the things done and moving the train forward. Then when we look at the other side of leadership, that's where we're leading others. And so it all starts with self-leadership, because if we're really good about doing it for ourselves, it's going to be a lot easier to do it for other people as well. So if we have a staff, even if it's outsourcers, even if it's, freelancers, we still need to basically lead them. We are the ones in charge. We are the ones that need to make the big decisions and make sure that everyone's doing the work that needs to be done to get us where we need to go. So we have to be able to motivate employees. We have to be able to create a vision for the organization. The best way to motivate employees is not by penalties or strict, rules and things like that. The best way to motivate them is by having a vision that everybody buys into. When we can paint a vision for the future and where everything is going, and we get other people coming into the organization because they bought into that particular vision, that's where there's real power. Because those people are bought into the bigger mission. It's not strictly about us or strictly about a paycheck or trading time for money. It's about trying to do something that's bigger than all of that. And so that in and of itself is the driving and motivating force. And it's also something that will align the entire company and everybody in it toward a common goal. And when we're able to do that as leaders and get that vision out there in a way that is magnetic to other people, that's where we start to have real power. That's where we start to really make breakthroughs and be able to build a business that is something that can endure and that can actually create something pretty incredible. But we also do it to make tough decisions. Part of leadership is being able to say no. Part of leadership is being able to discipline or to give people feedback on things, even when it isn't pleasant or happy, and being able to make hard decisions about choosing between various different things. So, one of the mistakes that a lot of entrepreneurs make if they're in sort of a passion business is, if they're really nice, maybe they have people on the team that they're not really that productive. They're not really a great fit. You kind of know it in your heart, but you just let it go for way too long. That's ultimately doing everybody a disservice. That's not great leadership, because we're hurting our own business by not having the right people in there and spending money on things that are wrong. And we're hurting the person because it isn't the right fit for them either. And so we're not doing right by them just by dragging them along when we already know they aren't a good fit. We're better off to help them try to find the thing that's right for them. That's powerful leadership. And that is basically what we want to try to develop as entrepreneurs. Sixth one is time management. This one goes without saying, particularly when we're getting started out. There's no question that time is our scarcest resource. So we need to have effective planning. We need to have effective prioritization. We need to know exactly what needs to be done and when it needs to be done. So that way we can execute those tasks and make sure we're not wasting a lot of time and resources because we just don't have the extra. Now, we may get to a point down the road where we have a little bit more breathing room, but in the beginning in particular, there's more stuff to be done than can be done in the time that we've got. So we've got to be able to be really effective at planning, prioritization, and executing tasks so that way we can meet those goals and we can avoid burning out. Because if we're constantly needing to work, and it's 16 hours a day and 18 hours a day, we can do that for short periods of time in crunch time, but that is not sustainable for any human being. We'll get to a point where we break down, we burn out, our health starts to go, and then the whole business collapses because it's all built on us. The seventh skill is networking, and we need to be able to build and leverage a professional network. This is a hugely important skill, and it's one that I actually unfortunately really overlooked for a long time, and it's one of my biggest professional regrets. Because one of the things that I realized is no matter how self-reliant that we feel, the fact of the matter is we're always better in groups. We're always better when we're able to bounce ideas off other people and get feedback and have everybody contribute to solving a problem. The more people that we have that we can connect with, the more different resources and perspectives we've got, the more people we can connect with that have already been through the challenges we're going through, the better advice we can get, more partnerships we can forge, and all sorts of different synergies. So networking is a hugely important skill for entrepreneurs, and it can really make the difference in terms of building that business a lot faster and easier with a lot fewer headaches and heartaches along the way. So building and leveraging a professional network can give us the guidance, the opportunities, and really valuable connections all at the same time. The eighth skill is branding and marketing. So as a small business in particular, we need to be able to build a brand. We need to be able to get our products and services, our messages, and all of our offers out there into the market. That's absolutely essential. And it's not just as simple as, hey, let's run some ads. That's certainly something that can be done. But branding and marketing goes beyond that. It's understanding exactly what we stand for, what our brand stands for, and exactly how to reach customers. Where are they? Where do they hang out? How can we tap into that? How can we connect with them in a way where we're going to be able to build a relationship and convert them into customers down the road? So these skills are going to be absolutely crucial because, and especially in the beginning, we've got to be able to promote our products or services. We've got to be able to make sales. And ultimately, as far as branding goes, with all the competition out there now in every single market, every single niche, we've got to have something that helps us stand out, that helps us, call out to our particular tribe and have them resonate with our messaging, resonate with who we are, want to do business with us, and want our products and services. And so that needs to be uniform and it needs to be universal, and we need to continually build on that same brand in a way that that gets that message out and really starts to bring in the right kinds of people. Those are going to be critical skills for being able to make sales and create a unique image for the business that stands out from competition. The ninth thing, I guess we could call it a skill, I'm going to put it in this bucket anyway, is risk tolerance. We don't need to be crazy risk takers, climb the Empire State Building, bungee jump type stuff. But entrepreneurs need to be comfortable with a lot of uncertainty, and we need to be willing to take calculated risks. So we do need to figure out, we want to be smart about the risks that we take, and we do need to figure out where the odds are to make sure that we're making good decisions. But we do need to take some chances. We have to take some risks. It's the only way we're going to be able to grow. If we stay inside of our comfort zone and only do things within the little bubble, there's a limit to how much we're going to be able to accomplish, how much we're going to be able to grow. When we evaluate certain risks and we say, okay, that one's worth taking, those are ones that we want to engage in. The 10th skill is curiosity and continuous learning. So I love this one because I really believe that as an entrepreneur, the reason I started the optYOUmize podcast is because I believe as entrepreneurs, our businesses are only limited by ourselves. We can only grow our business to the degree that we grow ourselves as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as leaders. And so having a continuous learning mindset is going to be super important, especially in today's day and age where the only constant is change. And the increase in competition and pace of change, it's only getting faster and more intense, not less. So we need to be constantly learning, constantly adapting, constantly changing and growing. And if we embrace that, as opposed to being afraid of it, then it can be fun. It can be energizing. It can be invigorating. So we need a willingness to learn new skills and to be able to adapt the challenges. It's absolutely essential for entrepreneurial success. And the 11th thing is data analytics. And again, we don't need to be experts on this. We just need to be able to understand that in business, everything is data driven. We need to be able to look at statistics and facts and not go by gut feel on things. So understanding and utilizing data can provide us valuable insights for business decision making. When we're able to look at things and at least understand what they mean, we can evaluate, are we getting closer to our goals, further away? What things should we change? What things can we adapt? And understand where we can allocate our resources for the best possible results. These skills encompass both hard skills, like the financial management and data analytics, and of course soft skills, like leadership and communication. As entrepreneurs, we need to be mutts. We need to be able to do it all. So developing a combination of these skills can significantly contribute to our success in being able to both start but also grow a business. So the takeaway here is that to be successful as an entrepreneur running a business, we need a lot of different skills, and we need to be flexible and versatile. But some of the skills stand out above the others as the most valuable in our journey to success. If we focus on cultivating these 11 traits, then we can feel confident that we're building the foundation that we need for success.